All right, let's jump right in. Today we're taking a deep dive into your latest batch of sources.
And from the looks of it, someone's been polishing their conversational English.
It's not just any English either.
It's giving very much UK vibes.
Oh yeah, tons of everyday chats, like catching trains,
Grabbing a bite to eat.
even some flat hunting thrown in there.
Definitely sounds like someone's preparing for something big.
Maybe a trip across the pond is in order.
Or perhaps even a more permanent move.
Who knows? We've got Dora, Alan, Nicola, Charlie, Lucy, Ryan.
Quite the cast of characters this time around.
I'm really curious to see how their stories will unfold as we dig deeper.
What really jumps out to me is the emphasis on practical communication. It's not just about textbook grammar.
Right. It's more about how people actually talk, in real life situations.
Exactly. And believe me, that's where things get a lot more interesting.
Like, how do you politely refuse another cup of tea when you're already buzzing from 3?
Or navigate the tube during rush hour without completely losing your cool.
These sources are full of those sorts of everyday scenarios.
And it's not just about the language itself, it's also about the cultural context that shapes how people communicate.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that classic British humor. Dry wit, understatement, the drill.
Like that story about the old dog outsmarting a leopard and a monkey.
I mean, hilarious.
Yeah.
But it also shows that British tendency to kind of downplay things, even when facing danger.
What's really fascinating about that story, though, is how the dog uses language to his advantage, doesn't rely on brute force, uses wordplay and trickery to outsmart his opponents.
That's so clever.
Very much a reflection of British culture, I'd say. A love of language and cleverness, often coming through in subtle ways.
It's like that saying, it's not what you say, but how you say it.
Exactly. As you're immersing yourself in these dialogues, pay attention to those subtle cues.
Things like,
Tone of voice, choice of words, even the pauses and silences.
all very telling.
They can reveal a lot about what's really going on beneath the surface.
Speaking of things going on beneath the surface, some of these characters are hiding some serious secrets.
Oh, like who?
Cindy chucking her designer shoe at Ryan. Talk about a red flag.
That scene, while humorous, does raise some questions about Cindy's personality, don't you think?
Totally.
Is she prone to impulsive reactions? A bit of a temper, perhaps? Or could there be something deeper going on?
It makes you wonder if she's the type to stress over every little detail, especially when it comes to planning and organizing.
Like when she was packing for their walking trip.
Umbrella, extra jumpers, the whole shebang.
Right.
Yeah.
That meticulous packing could actually be a sign of anxiety, not just a love of preparedness. And think about it, that tendency to overpack could be connected to a deeper cultural value, that British idea of being self-sufficient and prepared for any eventuality.
Especially with that unpredictable British weather.
Exactly. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
You've got that right.
And that mindset can actually be quite helpful when you're navigating a new culture. Being prepared for the unexpected can take a lot of stress out of the experience.
Speaking of stress, poor Alan. His leadership course sounds like a total washout.
Literally, from what I gathered.
Building bridges and pitching tents in the pouring rain. Not exactly what I'd call effective leadership training.
It's interesting, though, how Alan's initial enthusiasm just fizzles out when faced with those challenges.
He kind of gave up, didn't he?
He did. Remember that concept from your sources, the 90-10 rule?
Oh, yeah. 10% of life is what happens to us.
Ish.
And 90% is how we react to it.
Exactly. So in Alan's case, the rain, the difficult tasks, that's only 10% of the equation. The other 90% is his negative reaction, the complaining,
Right.
and eventually giving up.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to language learning.
You're bound to encounter challenges along the way. Make mistakes, even feel frustrated at times.
It happens to the best of us.
But it's how you choose to respond to those setbacks that will determine your success.
So do you let the rain dampen your spirits like Alan? Or do you find a way to adapt and keep going?
It's all about perspective.
Shifting from why me to what can I learn from this?
Precisely. And that's something you'll see reflected in the language itself. Pay attention to how the characters express their emotions, how they cope with setbacks, and how they ultimately choose to frame their experiences.
I love that. It's like these seemingly random conversations are actually packed with little nuggets of wisdom.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're not just learning English, we're exploring the human experience through the lens of language and culture. It's about connecting with these characters, understanding their motivations, and maybe even discovering something new about ourselves along the way. As we go deeper into these sources, what really strikes me?
What's that?
It's how much they reveal about British culture.
Oh, for sure. It's like a crash course in those unspoken rules
Yeah.
and those little social nuances.
The things that shape everyday life in the UK.
Exactly. It's not just about saying please and thank you.
It goes way deeper than that.
It's understanding the subtle cues.
The things that can make or break a social interaction.
Right. Like, how do you turn down a second helping of roast dinner?
Without offending your host.
Or how do you strike up a conversation with a stranger at the pub?
Without coming across as too forward.
These dialogues are packed with those cultural landmines.
It's fascinating how these unspoken rules play out in different contexts.
Like those conversations about renting a flat.
Oh yeah, good one. There's a real emphasis on practicalities there.
Central heating, double glazing, proximity to the tube.
Of course, of course.
But there are also those subtle hints about what's considered a desirable neighborhood. What kind of lifestyle is valued?
It's not just about finding a place to live.
It's about finding a place that fits your identity, your aspirations.
And those aspirations are often shaped by cultural norms and expectations.
Like the whole garden thing.
The emphasis on having a garden, even a small one.
Says a lot about that British love of nature. And the outdoors.
It's not just about growing vegetables either. It's a place to relax, to connect with nature.
Show off your green thumb a bit.
Exactly. And that reminds me, what about the obsession with weather?
It's like a national pastime.
It seems like every other conversation is about sunshine or rain.
Or that dreaded chilly drizzle.
Ah, yes, the infamous British weather. It's more than just small talk, though.
It's a way of connecting with people, sharing a common experience.
And maybe even bonding over the misery when those April showers just won't quit.
It's not always doom and gloom, though, is it? Remember that dialogue where Cindy and Ryan are packing for their walking trip?
Oh, yes. That one's a classic. Cindy is all prepared for a monsoon. And Ryan's basically packing a swimsuit and a smile.
It's like two completely opposite approaches to life.
That could reflect a deeper cultural difference, how people perceive risk and uncertainty.
Interesting.
Cindy's meticulous packing, that could be seen as a very British approach.
Being prepared for every eventuality.
Even if it means carrying an extra umbrella, just in case.
Ryan, on the other hand, he's all about, we'll figure it out as we go. Maybe more common in other cultures.
Possibly.
It's like, Cindy's the queen of better safe than sorry. And Ryan, he's all about living in the moment.
And those contrasting approaches can lead to some hilarious misunderstandings, as we see in that dialogue. But it also highlights the importance of communication and being aware of those cultural differences, especially when you're planning a trip with someone who might have a different perspective on, packing essentials.
Speaking of essentials, there was that conversation about money and budgeting.
Seemed like a pretty mundane topic at first.
But it actually revealed a lot about British attitudes towards finances. There's a real emphasis on saving, being thrifty, avoiding unnecessary debt.
You picked up on that too, huh? And it's even reflected in the language itself. Words like value, bargain, affordable, they pop up quite a lot. Speaks to a culture that values practicality and financial prudence.
It's not about flashy displays of wealth.
It's about making smart choices.
Living within your means.
Precisely. And that mindset, you can trace it back to historical factors. Wartime rationing, economic downturns.
A general sense of pragmatism.
Yeah.
Deeply ingrained in British culture.
Exactly. But it's not all about scrimping and saving. Remember Lucy.
Oh, yeah. Lucy wins Employee of the Month and gets whisked off to Paris.
A pretty lavish reward.
Absolutely.
Ah, yes, Lucy's Parisian adventure. It's a reminder that even in a culture that values thrift, there's still room for spontaneity, indulgence even.
And her reaction is priceless.
A mix of excitement and disbelief.
It's that, is this really happening to me? Feeling.
Totally relatable. And it's interesting how her language changes in that moment. She goes from using words like stuck and routine to suddenly talking about dreams and adventures, like a linguistic transformation, mirroring her emotional state.
That's a great observation. It highlights how language can be such a powerful tool for expressing our hopes and aspirations. And as you're learning English, don't be afraid to play with the language, to experiment with different ways of expressing yourself.
Embrace those moments of joy, excitement, even a little bit of extravagance.
I love that. It's like language isn't just about following the rules. It's about finding your own voice and using it to paint a picture of the world as you see it.
And speaking of different perspectives, these sources also touch upon some challenging social issues.
Oh, right.
Crime, identity theft, the impact of technology on the workplace. It's a reminder that even in a seemingly idyllic setting, Real-life problems exist.
It's like that story about Fred falling victim to a phone scam. A stark reminder that even in everyday conversations, we need to be vigilant about protecting our personal information.
Absolutely. And Fred's initial reaction denial, then anger is something many of us can relate to. It's that feeling of violation, having your trust betrayed. But it also highlights the importance of media literacy, critical thinking skills, being able to recognize potential scams, evaluate information sources. It's crucial in today's digital landscape.
It's like you need to be your own fact checker, especially when it comes to online information.
Precisely. And those critical thinking skills, they're also essential when it comes to navigating the world of work. It's constantly evolving. Remember that dialogue about robots taking over office jobs? Reflects a very real anxiety that many people are feeling, not just in the UK, but globally.
It's like this fear of becoming obsolete, of being replaced by a machine.
Makes you wonder, how do we adapt to these technological advancements without losing our sense of purpose and value?
That's the million-dollar question.
And it's one that these sources encourage us to grapple with. They don't offer easy answers, but they do provide a glimpse into how people are processing these changes, what their hopes and fears are, and how they're trying to find their place in a rapidly transforming world.
We're all in this together, figuring it out as we go.
And that sense of shared experience is what makes these dialogues so compelling. They remind us that even in the face of uncertainty and change, we can find connection, meaning, even a bit of humor along the way.
It's amazing how much these characters have changed. As we wrap up our deep dive, I'm struck by how much they've grown.
It is quite something. It's like we've been right there alongside them on this journey of personal growth,
Watching them face challenges, make those tough decisions, and come out the other side.
with a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. Take Dora, for example.
Oh yeah, Dora.
In the beginning, she seemed quite content, with her routine.
Work, family, the occasional soap opera.
Right. But as we delve deeper, we start to see this hint of restlessness.
A longing for something more. I felt that too. Remember that chat she had with her friend about traveling?
Yes, it wasn't just idle chit-chat. It was a subtle way of expressing her desire to break free from the mundane.
To experience something new.
Exactly, and that yearning for adventure, for something beyond the familiar, that's a universal human experience, that feeling of being on the cusp of something bigger, wanting to expand your horizons.
It makes you wonder, what would Dora's ideal adventure be? Backpacking through Southeast Asia, a cooking class in Tuscany, or maybe a weekend getaway to the Scottish Highlands.
So many possibilities, and it's a good reminder that even those who seem to have it all often harbor secret dreams and desires. Never stop exploring, right?
Never stop seeking out those things that light you up.
Exactly. Speaking of seeking out new experiences, remember Alan and his disastrous leadership course.
Oh man, talk about a trial by fire, or should I say trial by rain.
He really went through it, but it's amazing how he bounced back from that initial setback.
He didn't give up.
He didn't. Remember how he initially resisted the bridge building activity?
Filled with twigs and rope?
Yeah. Thought it was pointless, impractical.
And he came around eventually.
He did. Embrace the challenge, even if it meant getting completely soaked.
Sometimes you have to get your hands dirty to build something beautiful.
Well said. That willingness to step outside of your comfort zone, to embrace the messy, the unpredictable, it's essential for growth, both personally and professionally.
We can't forget about poor Fred either, and that whole identity theft nightmare.
It's a harsh reminder to be aware of those online scams, especially in this digital age. Information is so easily shared and exploited.
It's tough,
Yeah.
but Fred's reaction highlights something important.
Resilience.
Yes. He was devastated at first, feeling violated, helpless,
I can only imagine.
but he didn't let it defeat him. He took action, reported the crime, and ultimately regained control.
It's a good reminder that even when things go wrong, we have the power to choose how we respond.
We can let those negative emotions paralyze us, or we can channel them into positive action.
Exactly. And speaking of positive action, remember Erica, the computer programmer who started her own software company.
Such an inspiring story.
Even though her business didn't work out, she gained something valuable.
A newfound sense of confidence and self-belief. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest rewards come from simply having the courage to chase your dreams, regardless of the outcome.
Well said. It's about embracing the journey, the learning process, the ups and downs that inevitably come with taking risks, stepping outside of your comfort zone.
And even though Erica's business didn't succeed in the traditional sense, she gained valuable experience, knowledge, a network of contacts to leverage in the future.
Absolutely. It's like failure isn't the end, it's just a detour on the road to success. And sometimes those detours lead to even more amazing destinations.
That's a great way to look at it. And then there's Leroy, the production manager who worked his way up from humble beginnings.
A true testament to the power of lifelong learning.
Never too late to pursue your goals and expand your knowledge.
Challenges the idea that our early choices define our future.
We all have the potential to grow, evolve, regardless of our background.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's those who face the biggest obstacles that develop the strongest resilience.
And the most unwavering determination. We can't forget Marianne either, the housewife and part-time librarian.
Balancing family life with personal pursuits.
She's a great reminder that fulfillment can be found in different ways, and that it's okay to prioritize different aspects of your life at different times.
Her story speaks to the complexity of human experience.
How we navigate those multiple roles and responsibilities, and the choices we make about what truly matters most.
Exactly. And even though Marianne might have some regrets, she ultimately finds satisfaction in her role as a mother and caregiver.
It's a good reminder that there's no single right way to live your life. Happiness often comes from embracing the journey, with all its twists and turns.
And sometimes those most fulfilling experiences are found in the everyday moments.
The simple joys of connecting with loved ones, contributing to your community. And before we wrap up, let's not forget those characters who didn't get as much airtime.
But whose stories add to the richness of this human experience.
Theo, whose life was saved by a spider bite, a reminder of the unpredictable nature of fate.
Maggie, whose house was saved from a fire by a burglar, challenging our assumptions about good and evil.
And Jonas, who spent 3 days stuck in a tree after a paragliding mishap, a true demonstration of human resilience.
It's incredible how these seemingly random events, these chance encounters, can shape our lives.
They often hold the key to our greatest growth and transformation.
So as you continue your English language journey, remember to embrace the unexpected, find the humor in the mundane, and allow yourself to be surprised by the richness and complexity of human experience.
And never underestimate the power of a simple conversation. To open your mind, expand your horizons, connect you to the wider world. Who knows, maybe one day you'll find yourself at a pub in London, chatting with a local about the weather, or sharing a laugh over a cuppa with a new friend. And in that moment, you'll realize that language isn't just about words and grammar.
It's about bridging cultures, building connections, discovering that shared humanity that unites us all.
Until next time, happy exploring.